Okay, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Today I have this article from Zero Hedge. It's titled Epstein's Island and the Gateway to the Psychology of Evil. So I'm going to read it and try to filter it through the scriptures, of course. This is authored by Brandon Smith via altmarket.us, and it reads, conspiracy theorists are almost always right. We have been proved right time and time again, and we will continue to be right about many things that the corporate media used to call fringe. And that's the difference between a conspiracy theorist versus a man of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, or the prophets of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, is that conspiracy theorists are almost always right, whereas those who speak the truth are always right, through the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, the Ruach HaKodesh, and also, conspiracy theorists, they can only operate on, things that have been before and now, whereas the men of the Lord have been given the foresight to see the things that haven't come yet, the future prophecy. We have been proved right time and time again, and we will continue to be right about many things that the corporate media used to call fringe. For those out there who are like me, people who have been trying to warn the public about these threats for 20 years or more. Again, the men of the Lord. All the things that are coming to light about these devils, their interests, the things that they do, how they operate, have been, they have been warning people for the longest time. But now it's the time for these things to come to light. And really, it's only coming to light for those who, for a majority of the world, those who have been in a deep sleep. Because all the things that are being brought out, dealing with this whole Epstein case and whatnot, many of us have already known that they've been operating like this, but for the majority of the world, this is now their clarification, them being, again, sleep. They need literal, tangible, evidence for certain things in order for them to believe certain things. If it sounds far-fetched, they're not going to believe it until they physically, or literally see it. I just want to say, continuing reading, I just want to say we have won a resounding victory. We brought the dark secrets of the elites into the mainstream, and there's nothing that can stop this train now, right? Because again, as scriptures say, it's all going to come to light, right? Let's get the book of Isaiah, chapter 26, verse 21. And it reads, for behold, the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. Right? And now what this is really going into is when, that the Lord actually does return and enacts his judgment. But through his spirit being upon the earth, the Lord is still here. Right? It's like you. And through the preaching of his word, through his men, he is disclosing the blood, disclosing the, the evils of those who run this world. Let's get this in the NLT. And it reads, look, the Lord is coming from heaven to punish the people of the earth for their sins. The earth will no longer hide those who have been killed. They will be brought out for all to see. Right? And the ways of the wicked, mainly dealing with Esau, Edom, and really the higher ups, those who hold some type of power, some type of fame, you know, have some type of influence, for lack of better words. The things that they do is being brought to light. It reads, we brought the dark secrets of the elites into the mainstream, and there's nothing that can stop this train now, right? And it says that we have won a resounding victory, right? And I wouldn't consider this a victory, because now the question is, what are the people going to do about it? Can they do anything about it? And that seems to be what these elites or those higher ups are really waiting for, because it's kind of like they have the people dealing with the American people in a whole. It's kind of like checkmate, right? Because there's two ways this can go. The people do nothing. They continue to go to work, continue to pay their taxes, continue to be the good the good little slaves, right? And all that's showing the people, the higher ups, is, oh yeah, we got them. We can show them anything. We can show them how we're operating behind the scenes, and still what they do, they still obey our words. Oh yeah, we got them. And it's things like that that really, if anything, that just gives them more confirmation to further usher in their beast system, because they know that no matter what we do, these people, we have them in a chokehold. It's just going to become to where they're no longer trying to hide anything, because right now, it's a plausible deniability versus them just straight up acknowledging it, and that's what's soon going to come. Oh yeah, we did this. Now what? What are you going to do about it? Nothing. I'll get your ass back in line, right? That's soon going to be the attitude, for lack of better words, of those higher ups. Now, on the other hand, right, this can lead to the people actually doing something about it, which is why scriptures speak about 2nd Ezra 15, there being sedition among men. It's 2nd Ezra chapter 15. Verse 14, and it reads, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands, right? In which the modern day sword is like unto a gun, but it's also going into the division, one people fighting against another, and that's going to be on all fronts, within the homes, right? Within the, society, the people, the government, different countries. Is just division all across the board. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power, right? So basically goes into, as it says, sedition, rebellion, right? Anarchy, lawlessness. Why? Because they are seeing that their kings and their princes, those who hold the power, right, the higher ups, the things that they do, right, they don't abide by their own laws, so why should we? So this is another track that this whole case can lead to people rebelling, because which is more than likely going to come to that, because how can, after all of this has been, disclosed, has been output mainstream, as we just read, how can you just go past this, right? All the other things that, the people as a whole have just let go by. This is by far the worst. This not something you can just let go by as if it didn't happen. So this thing is just going to continue on to escalate. But that's what they want, right? Because then that gives them the justification to, okay, we need the military to come in and quell the people, man. Is martial law. Which again, going all the way back to the apostles and elders of GMS, the bishops, brothers on down, they have been warning about these things, man. But it's all playing out according to the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Let's continue. We have won a resounding victory. We brought the dark secrets of the elites into the mainstream, and there's nothing that can stop this train now, right? But the victory really is when you can stop the elites from doing the things that they're doing. That's the victory. Just, ousting someone as the villain does not give you the victory. Now you have to defeat the villain, right? And which the only one who is capable of completing that is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. That's why scriptures say vengeance is for the Lord, because he's the only one that can properly enact it, man. However, the fight is far from over, and don't expect anyone to give you any awards or even recognition. It's the nature of our work, and frankly, the best thing that can happen in the long run is that researchers and analysts like us eventually become obsolete. In the meantime, the info war to save civilization continues. One issue I have spearheaded in my career, along with a handful of other liberty writers, is delving into psychology and ideology of the globalists. I find their existence to be fascinating, revolting to be sure, but also fascinating. The theory in which these globalists or these elites, right, they're just wicked. That's how the Lord created them to be. The theory, which I have held for 2 decades, is that the globalists are first and foremost an occult network of organized psychopaths, meaning they seek out people with psychopathic traits, latent or otherwise, in order to recruit and grow their numbers. The common assumption in the general public is that psychopaths are supposed to operate in isolation, that they do not work together because they are too self-absorbed to organize. History shows us that this is simply not true. From the mafia to violent drug cartels to religious cults to authoritarian governments, we have seen psychopaths congregate together and cooperate in the worst moments of our timeline. They do it for mutual gain, but I believe there is an agenda that goes well beyond that. It's a far-reaching conspiracy which the recent release of the Epstein files seemed to support. To be clear, I think the information presented so far in the files barely scratches the surface of the evil we are dealing with. That's correct. It's just, again, watering the people down to what's going on behind the scenes. I also think it's important to point out that people being named in the Epstein files is meaningless without context. Some public figures like Donald Trump or Elon Musk are named as interacting with Epstein, but there is zero evidence that they participated in anything nefarious. Epstein approached anyone with power or influence and tried to recruit them. Furthermore, anonymous FBI tips from random weirdos do not make a criminal case. And when right, like we know that it's all of them. All the celebrities, anyone with status in this world take part in these types of things, these type of rituals, sacrifices, and events. Some public figures, okay, read that. Others are named in the files, and the context suggests that they have done some pretty disgusting things. The files represent enough evidence to justify a massive international investigation. They do not represent proof of crimes that would hold up in a court of law, at least not so far. We may actually never see indictments of any Epstein Island regulars, As I noted in my article, Governmental Self-Preservation, Why We'll Never See the Real Epstein List, published last year, I do think there are many people in the Trump administration that want to see the Epstein case lead to arrest. However, I also predicted that the revelations within the files could trigger even darker discoveries that might cause total collapse. And that's what we want, right? Just a total collapse of this system. Because what's going to fix that total collapse, order out of chaos, right? Problem, reaction, solution. What's going to fix that total collapse is their MOTB. It'll help reorganize, their system and make it better. The people handling this info are faced with a conundrum: pursue the light of truth, dump it all on the internet and risk full-blown societal chaos, exactly, or drip feed info to the public and try to keep the system from imploding. Forget about aliens from outer space. The disclosure of concrete proof that a Luciferian cult of baby-eating bankers, CEOs, politicians, and bureaucrats controls the planet is the real Black Swan event, right? So this is going to be, world changing, or at least here in America. This something big is going to happen, right? Something this big doesn't just happen and result to nothing. One cannot have a meaningful discussion about the nature of power in modern civilization, post-industrial revolution, without accepting the cold, hard reality that most of the key events in our recent history have been manipulated by a consortium of elites. Again, this has been being, told to the people for years. Yeah, you basically have a group of elites, mainly Esau, Edomites, who control this world, and they're just a bunch of Satan worshipers, right? Because all these false idols, these gods that they ultimately worship, you see people talking about Molech and Baal and Baal. It all just goes back to Satan. They're all offshoots of Satan, the spiritual demon Satan. Where were we? One cannot have a meaningful discussion about the nature of power in modern civilization, post-industrial revolution, without accepting the cold, hard reality that most of the key events in our recent history have been manipulated by a hidden consortium of elites. We also can't have any legitimate debate about how to solve the problem without accepting the fact that evil is an undeniable constant. Why? Because as scriptures say, the world is given into the hands of the wicked, man. That's all they know is evil. That's the main ingredient. It's damn near the only ingredient. Let's get that. It's the book of Job, chapter 9, verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? And this is not, this doesn't seem so hard to believe now, right? As it says, this conspiracy theorists, quote unquote, have been proven right. The men of the Lord have been proven right yet again. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Where and who is he, man? All the evidence coming out on these devils is they're just telling on themselves now, or confirming it. Again, to the people who really been asleep. Let's look into this word wicked. Rishai. Wicked, criminal, guilty one guilty of crime. Wicked, hostile to the Most High. wicked, guilty of sin against the Most Higher man, wicked, ungodly, wicked man, morally wrong, concretely and actively bad person, condemned, guilty, ungodly, wicked man that did wrong. And that's all, these people know is how to do wrong. That's what they're best. That's the only thing they are good at, is being ungodly, being the opposite of righteous, evil. Let's look here. Let's get ungodly. Okay, same word. Right. Okay, so let's go back. We also can't have any legitimate debate about how to solve the problem without accepting the fact that evil is an undeniable constant, right? And it's not just any evil, man. It's the utmost evil, right? Scriptures refer to, Esau, Edom, mainly the elites of Esau, the higher up, those in these high positions, as the wicked. Is not as in, like, if you were to search up or get a dictionary, right? You search up the word wicked, Esau pops up, because that's what they are. They are the personification of that word. Evil is a tangible and autonomous entity that wields influence over human society, often using people with inherent weaknesses of the soul as vessels for achieving its machinations. Yes, that sounds rather biblical, exactly. But I would argue that our religious ancestors might have had a much better grasp on the nature of evil than we do today, given our futurist propensity to deny anything we can't immediately explain with science, right? And it's not just those of the past, but what, through the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, the things of the past are come into our remembrance, man. That's why you have brothers who can link everything that's going on to this world back to the Bible. We know that these are the same people doing the same wicked shit that they were doing before. This is the book of John, chapter 14, I believe it's around the 20th verse. This is John chapter 14, verse 26. And it reads, "But the Comforter, which is the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you." So as it reads here, but I will argue that our religious ancestors might have had a much better grasp on the nature of evil than we do today. That's, for the men of the Lord, we have that same grasp, man, because it's been brought back to us. The Epstein files suggest an evil that's beyond reckoning for many people who have never been exposed to research on globalism, and even those who have been exposed might find themselves shocked by the discoveries. To summarize, Jeffrey Epstein was not the top of the pyramid, not even close, actually. Salakia. He was also not some self-serving, flim-flam man selling sex and depravity just to gain access to halls of power. Rather, Epstein was a middleman, a drug dealer selling dopamine experience as a reward for members of the cabal, which is basically the elites, while collecting blackmail materials. But the cabal is far bigger than what we see in the Epstein files, and it supersedes any one nation or government, right? Because this is a world global elite thing, man. They're all like this. It just trickles down from, from them to these technocrats, to the governments, to the president, so on and so forth, to the celebrities. As it reads here, is a pyramid, you know. And at that top, you have Esau, Edom, and more namely Amalek, the so-called small hats. And this is why scriptures say that the Lord said he would have war with them from generation to generation. Let's see if we could get that. It's the book of Exodus, chapter 17, verse 16. And it reads, we start at verse 14. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Yahweh Nissi, or Jehovah Nissi. Let's get that in Hebrew. Oh, gotta open it. Yahweh Nissi. Yahweh is my banner, the name given by Moses to the altar which he built to commemoration of the discomfiture of the Amalekites, in which Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father, not God. Meaning he is, or he is to be, he exists. For he said, because the Lord Yahweh hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Why is that? Because they are, they are evil incarnate. Their wickedness incarnate. The Lord is a just and righteous power. So, opposites collide, or opposites attract. Salakia. And until the Lord has done away with them, that war is going to continue on. Because these are the things that they do, man. It's all coming to light. But the cabal is far bigger than what we see in the Epstein files, and it supersedes any one nation or government. There are strange mentions of cloning, baby farming for black market sales, and the creation of a superior race in the files. In other words, the interests of Epstein and his associates went well beyond sexual fetishes. Some of the Epstein emails openly discuss sexual abuse and torture of victims brought to the island. The victimization of teens is less protected and easier to prove. Then there's the creepier elements of the files. Coded language is rampant within the Epstein emails, using food as symbols for clearly illicit contraband. From the Pizzagate information, the John Podesta emails released by WikiLeaks in 2016, we can see that food code words are common for the globalists and seem to be tied to the abuse of young children. Pizza symbolism has been common with pedophilia networks for many years leading up to the exposure of Pizzagate, and it's also common within the pages of the Epstein files. The word pizza is used as a code at least 900 times in the emails. The use of beef jerky in the Epstein emails also mentioned hundreds of times. It's specifically disconcerting, including talk of keeping the jerky on ice, a strange obsession with jerky portion weights, lab testing of jerky to prevent sickness, etc. Whatever they are talking about, it's not beef jerky. You have to ask yourself what kind of edible product would be so criminal that it has to be hidden behind elaborate code speak. The obvious conclusion would be that jerky is code for human meat. Some might argue that there's no benefits to eating human meat, so why would the elites do it? Because again, they're evil, man. Half the shit that they do is like, why? Because they lack morals, the things that are common, that your spirit tells you, okay, I probably shouldn't do that. They don't have that. They don't have those thoughts in their brain. And when you have the type of power that they hold, there's no need to fight against those impulses, right? They can just, commit what they want, do what they want. The obvious conclusion would be that jerky is code for human meat. Some might argue that there's no benefits to eating human meat, so why would the elites do it? These critics are operating from a logical perspective and not an occultist perspective, right? And we operate from a biblical perspective, right? A most high perspective, so to speak, through his spirit. And we know that the Lord created these devils to be that way, to show the world how not to be, to show the world what wickedness is. And also when he takes them down, brings that destruction, brings the judgment upon them, he's going to show them why you shouldn't be like that. Because this is what happens. And really, it's for his people to know, right? Because we experience being, having a little power, right? Back in the days, dealing with King David, so on and so forth. And we used to have our kings, our kingdom. And now we're in this low position. And the Lord is all about balance. So he gave us he let us see what it's like in both worlds for us to be better. Because you need to be able to understand everything in order to, understand everything. It makes you a better judge, right? These critics are operating from a logical perspective and not an occultist perspective. One cannot separate Epstein Island from occultism and still understand what happened there. For the elites who link themselves back to the pagan practices of ancient Babylonian times, from the era of Molech worshippers, Bohemian Grove, in which it goes beyond that as well, back all the way down, because half of these gods are what? Canaanite gods, Canaanite idols. From the era of Molech worshippers, Bohemian Grove, and beyond, the ritual of cannibalism is integral to their religion. They believe that human sacrifice gives them power, and this is a common thread with most pagan systems, including Satanism. Exactly, because on the right-hand side, the Lord himself requires sacrifice, right? And so does Satan on the left-handed side. And that's who these devils worship. They believe that human sacrifices give them power, and this is a common thread. And part of that power that they receive from these demons, right, from these evil spirits, is their knowledge when it comes to all this technology and so on and so forth. Luciferianism/Satanism is an integral element of globalism. The evidence of its practice within globalist circles is immense and cannot be ignored. Some skeptics would denote a separation between Satanism and Luciferianism, where for all intents and purposes they are intertwined belief systems. Satanists are occupied with the pursuit of pleasure at the expense of morality, while Luciferians are occupied with the pursuit of power and godhood at the expense of morality. For adherents of both practices, their motto is "do what thou wilt," right? And that's dealing with America, right? That's what they push. Do what you want, live how you want, right? That's why here, let's get here, Revelation 17 and 5. You start at verse 4, and it reads, "And the woman," which is symbolic of America, "and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in the hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, right? This is why this woman, America, was given this name. Let's look into this word abominations, right? A foul thing, a detestable thing, which that's bedel ugma. See, it's in the Greek.
Strong's G 946. Bedelugma. Bedelugma.
It's a funny word. Bedel ugma. Okay. A foul thing, a detestable thing of idols and things pertaining to idolatry. Abomination, a detestation, i.e., especially idolatry, abomination, right? So, detestable things, no morals. That's all they know. That's the energy that they push out on the earth to do what you want, right? And in which man was not made to live how they want, but live according to, the ways of Yahweh Ba'ashim Shai. It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13. And it reads, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Right? So if you fear the Lord, you aren't going to, live according to how you want, but according to how the Lord has ordained it. Because first off, right, we're in this sinful flesh. So living according to how we want, we're going to do nothing but sin for the most part, giving into the pleasures of the flesh. And that's why, again, dealing with these devils, that's how they live. Because they're just fleshly. They're carnal. They don't have any spiritual morality, which is what it's reading here. Global elitists derive their spiritual ecstasy from the worship of material and the corruption of the pure. But we were not there. Were we here? Up here. Satanists are occupied with the pursuits of pleasure at the expense of morality, while Luciferians are occupied with the pursuit of power and godhood at the expense of morality, in which these elites, they're both, right? They all of the above. Pleasure, power, fame, money, zero morals. Do anything and whatever for money, for power, right? And that's why scriptures say the love of money is the root of all evil. Because you would do anything, you're willing to do any and everything to keep it and to gain it. But going back here, right, fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. It doesn't say, the duty of man is to live how you want. No, the duty of man ultimately is to serve the Lord. Let's get the book of Romans chapter 7, verse 18. We can start. Let's just get straight to the point. And it reads, for I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good, I find not. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would, that I do. Right? So Apostle Paul is going into the two natures, right? The flesh and the spirit. Dealing with a righteous spirit, you want to, serve the Lord as best you can, but dealing in this flesh, it's a fight, because the flesh wants to do the opposite. And dealing with these devils, they don't even have that spirit of wanting to do right by the Lord. They just completely give over to the flesh. That's why they're referred to as the wicked. They have, again, zero morals. They have zero. They don't even want to do right. They want to do wrong, man. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. But continuing, Their motto is do what thou wilt. Exactly. Not do what the Lord wills, but do as thou wilt. And that's that pride. Because then you're just putting yourself in the position of a God when you're just a mortal. That's why the Lord says pride is not made for man. As a man, you're not supposed to live how you want. You're subject to the Most High. So you live how he wants you to live. As I outlined in my article, Luciferianism, a secular look at a destructive globalist belief system, published in 2019, global elitists derive their spiritual ecstasy from the worship of the material and the corruption of the pure, right? In which, scriptures also say what? If it were possible, they would deceive the very elect. We can go grab that, because when it says corruption of the pure, dealing with the Lord's elect, those that he have purified, has made, different from the rest of the world, there's no corrupting them, man. That's Matthew. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 24, Salakia. We start at verse 23. This is red letter, the words of Yahweh Shai, the Savior. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is a Mashiach, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Hamashiachs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, so much that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Now, dealing with if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. That's with anything. The Lord has given his elect the discernment, right? The spirit, the wisdom, the knowledge and understanding to maneuver within this corrupt world and maneuver through the corruption. So it says here, global elitists derive their spiritual ecstasy from the worship of material and the corruption of the pure, right? The pure of Yahweh Ba'Shem Hawashai is, there's no corrupting them, right? So what do you have to do? Kill them. If you can't corrupt them, that means you gotta get them out of here some way, and that's to kill them. And that's what these devils are gonna do, or try and do, at least. They seek to deconstruct creation and human nature to prove that all people are as depraved as they are, and that morality is an artificial limitation on power and pleasure. Their system is rife with psychopathic indicators, and I assert that Luciferianism is a religion designed specifically to affirm the destructive tendencies of psychopaths and narcopaths. But what are these tendencies, right? Destructive tendencies. What does the Lord refer to Esau Edom as, man? The son of perdition. Let's go grab that as well. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. We start from the top. Man of lawlessness, right? Zero morality, man. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Hamashiach is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, right? Dealing with the time circa 70 AD, when you had the Romans ransacked Jerusalem, the Jews, and we fled, leading to our falling away of ultimately who we were, our heritage, so on and so forth. And that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Now, I want to look into this word sin as well as perdition. Hamartia.
Strong's G 266. Hamartia.
Hamartia, equivalent to be without a share in, to miss the mark, to err, to mistaken, or be mistaken, Salakia, to miss or wander from the path of uprightness and honor, to do or go wrong, right? And doing as thou wilt, you are going to do nothing but wrong, especially dealing with Esau, Edom, because that's all they are. They were made to be wrong. To wander from the law of the Most High, violate the Most High's law, sin, right? Scripture says sin is the transgression of the law. That which is done wrong, sin, an offense, a violation of the divine law in thought or in act. Collectively, the complex or aggregate of sins committed either by a single person or by many, right? So this is the man of sin. It means this is what they're made of, man. It's doing wrong according to the ways of the Lord. And even, let's say you didn't know the ways of the Lord, but again, you know, there were certain things that people are born with just knowing that is wrong. You know, you're born knowing that, okay, I probably shouldn't kill someone, right? These devils, they don't have those, you know, thoughts, for lack of better words. Let's also get this word here, perdition, because the article said that what they have destructive tendencies, right? Apolia,
Strong's G 684. Apolia.
destroying, utter destruction of vessels, a perishing, ruin, destruction of money, the destruction which consists of eternal misery in hell, in which we know that, you know, there is no place called hell where, you know, when people die, they go under the earth to burn forever. But, you know, this world we live in is hell. The condition that the Lord can put you in this world is hell, right? And really, the word hell goes back to the grave, you know, death. But they are the son of perdition, you know, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called the Most High, right? And choosing to live how you want versus how the Lord wants, that's, you know, exalting yourself above the Most High. Again, going into the pride. Who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he as the Most High sitteth in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Most High, right? These devils have a God complex. Their system is rife with psychopathic indicators, and I assert that Luciferianism is a religion designed specifically to affirm the destructive tendencies of psychopaths and narcopaths. But what are these tendencies? Psychopaths lack any sense of empathy and function only as parasites who feed on the rest of humanity, right? And that's also scriptural, right? Parasites who feed on the rest of humanity. These devils were given power to take peace from the earth. That's what parasites do. They take peace from you. You know, they drain you, man. Let's go get that as well. This is Revelation chapter 6, verse 4. And it reads, and there went out another horse that was red. That red horse representing Esau, Edom. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. Again, dealing with Esau, Edom, which are, you know, the main of these global elites. Esau, Edom, the wicked who rule the earth. Power was given to them to take peace from the earth, man, as a parasite. They take peace, righteousness, you know, morals. They take it all away from the earth. They corrupt the earth. You know, that's why, you know, they were given great power, but they were irresponsible with it, which is why the Lord is going to take it away from them. You know, there's a saying, great power comes great responsibility. They were completely irresponsible with the earth, so they don't deserve it. And and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword, right? Dealing with Esau, you know, if you go back to the blessings that Isaac gave to Jacob and Esau, Esau was given the sword. Psychopaths lack any sense of empathy and function only as parasites who feed on the rest of humanity. This is actually one of the reasons I'm fascinated by them, not because they are particularly interesting as individuals, but because their existence, Salakia, seems to be a dangerous anomaly, right? But it's an anomaly because that's how the Lord created it to be. You know, they are just exceedingly wicked compared to everyone else, in which Esau as a whole, right, dealing with the so-called white man, the so-called white race, a lot of them, you know, think this way. They just don't have the power to act on those impulses, right? Not because they are particularly interesting as individuals, but because and I believe the person who made this article is an Edomite as well, because, you know, why would that pique your interest? But you know, I'm sure as hell wouldn't be fascinated by them. Not because they are particularly interested as individuals, but because their existence seems to be a dangerous anomaly. They are less than 1% of the total human population, but because they cause the vast majority of human tragedies. The average person has the capacity for evil, there's no doubt. People can be driven to all kinds of horrors depending on their circumstances, but the majority of us have a mechanism called conscience, which stops us from committing evil most of the time. It also causes us to feel guilt when we know we have acted in a destructive manner, and that's exactly what I was, trying to get at. How inherently, you know, when certain things are just wrong, but dealing with these devils, they don't have that. They were made to be wrong. They think that the things that are wrong are actually right, which is why the world is the way that it is, man. It's upside down. It's confused from what's actually right and what's wrong. But again, that's all done according to the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, the will of the Heavenly Father. You know, that's why the Lord put them in power, because he knew they can get that job done. They're the people on the earth that could completely turn the earth upside down. That could completely, you know, make the person who is righteous look wicked and the one who is wicked look righteous. You need someone who specializes in wickedness in order to be able to do that, man. And that's Esau Edom. That's these elites. But the majority of us have a mechanism called conscience, which stops us from committing evil most of the time. It also causes us to feel guilt when we know we have acted in a destructive manner. If the majority of the population did not have a universal experience of conscience and morality, we would have gone extinct as a species thousands of years ago. Globalists, psychopaths do not have this mechanism. In fact, they view conscience as an hindrance, a trait of weak and easily victimized. They are a predatory class of human. I would even suggest that they are not human at all, but a mutation or a cancerous intrusion, right? In which, yeah, they're human, but they've been given the spirits of demons, of devils. That's why they're referred to as Satan. We refer to them as devils. You know, they are like the physical counterpart of Satan that dwells upon the earth, that looks just like us, you know, as in they're humans, right? But they're really just devils, man. They're demons in dwelling in flesh. When psychopaths achieve overt material wealth, they then have easy access to the resources that they need to satisfy their impulses at will. At this stage in the evolution of a psychopath, they have a tendency to become bored. They begin to chase increasingly depravity and darkness in search of a greater dopamine fix. The more degenerate and taboo the activity, the more exciting it is. But these are nothing but individual motivations and personal addictions. What are the ambitions and drives of the organized cabal? Part of the allure of occultism is the glee some people feel when they believe they are superior to their common man, in which it goes beyond than just being superior to the common man, because as we read in the 2 Thessalonians, right, we can grab that again. These devils think they're superior to the one and only, true living God. Right, verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he, as the Most High, sitteth in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Most High. Right, we can also get this in Isaiah 14. We can start at verse 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Right? So their pride goes far beyond than just, thinking they're better than you. They have a real life God complex, man. And when the Lord returns, he's going to show them what a God truly is. Right? He's going to show them that the idols that they worship aren't gods, and them themselves damn sure aren't gods, right? Part of the allure of occultism is the glee some people feel when they believe they are superior to their common man. Occult groups sell their members on the notion that they will be set apart as elite when they join with the keepers of secrets. When we read the numerous emails tied to Epstein, as well as his island and his ranch in New Mexico, the people who correspond with him seem childish and giddy. They snicker like adolescent brats when they engage in codes and riddles. They're committing atrocities beyond the comprehension of the average man, and they feel joy because they're basking in the cloak and dagger of it all. I think this might be a hard thing to reconcile for many people in the conspiracy field, but the cabal is not made up of darkly brilliant minds imposing code and calculating will. Rather, it is mostly made of egomaniacal narcissists giggling like retards as they revel in their delusions of grandeur. And these people aren't really the brightest. They are weirdos, right? But scriptures do say they do a diligent search, so they have knowledge as well, dealing with these actual higher ups, at least. But again, how do they gain that knowledge? If you saw how these people behave behind the scenes, you would probably feel embarrassed for them and feel like an idiot for imagining them to be cunning or untouchable masterminds. And we see that, right? When you be seeing these interviews of these technocrats and so on and so forth, they're complete weirdos, like straight up dorks. Without their money and the collective protection of their coven, they are tiny people without merit, living a meaningless existence. That said, make no mistake, it's the putrid sociopathy of their childishness that makes them exceedingly dangerous. To be infantile while rejoicing in the blood of innocence requires a diabolical and demonic mind. And what it is how, right, the scriptures refers to Esau as the basest of men. So these are the people who, if there was a totem pole of, races, for lack of better words, or, nations of people on the earth, they would be at the very bottom, right? Yet the Lord put them at the top. So with that comes a sort of high, right? Again, the pride. It's like when someone who's extremely poor, they might hit the lottery and they start wilding out with the money. That's exactly what these devils do. The Lord put them in power and now they wilding out, man. Right, but that really goes to show you the power of the Lord. He put the people at the bottom on the top. And the people who are supposed to be at the top, at the bottom, dealing with us, Israel. But, he's going to put things in their correct order real soon. Without their money and the collective protection of their covenant, they are tiny people without merit, living a meaningless existence. That said, make no mistake. These devils were these devils was on so much of a lower level, right, compared to the rest of humans or the rest of nations, that they were pretty much beastmen, damn near animals who were humans. Now they're sitting at the top holding all the power. What do you think comes from that? Nothing but destruction, nothing but wickedness, nothing but iniquity, nothing but evil and confusion. From my research, Epstein's Island might have been tame in comparison to some of the other meeting places of the elites, right? And that's exactly because, Epstein Island, if they really didn't want any of this info coming out, it wouldn't be coming out. What they're trying to do is, again, like I said, test the people, see, which way they can take it. But really, obviously it's the Lord who has this information coming out. His island was not the end destination, but a gateway for initiates. I believe the island was a test, a venue where evil is concentrated and people with apprehensions are filtered away. The worst of the worst likely moved on to even more vile nesting grounds hidden in plain sight around the world. The reason the Epstein files matter is because they opened the door to a wider investigation of the globalist networks and their horrific playgrounds. Exactly. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I suggest that we need to bring back the conception of witch hunters, people who are able to think like occultists while using modern investigative methods in order to track down these networks and erase them from the earth. If government officials refuse to do this, then vigilantism is inevitable. Unfortunately, and then that's basically people, taking things into their own hands, right? Vigilantes. They're not operating under the government or whatever, right? How, things like, if you watch Ninja Turtles, they were referred to as vigilantes, right? They weren't a government operated thing, yet they were stopping crime and stuff on their own. Unfortunately, it's no mistake that globalist NGOs have flooded the West with third world migrants and mobilized armies of far left insurgents in the past few years. After the pandemic, they know that the public is reaching information saturation, and their agenda is coming to light. And again, it's no coincidence that all of this is coming out now, man, when we're literally this close to the end. Showed you it's the doing of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashi, right? Their agenda is coming to light. Let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 5. We start at verse 4, and it reads, "For I know nothing by myself, yet am I not hereby justified, but he that judges me is the Lord. Therefore judge nothing before the time until the Lord come, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness. So the Lord, through his word, right? Because the Lord, he hasn't made that second coming in the physical sense just yet, but he has returned through his spirit that he has on his men. So he's bringing the things of darkness to light, man. Who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness and will make manifest the counsels of the hearts, right? Hearts going into your spirit, your mind. And then shall every man have praise of the Most High. Meaning, having praise of the Most High, meaning, you're going to be rewarded accordingly. The wicked get rewarded according to their wickedness, and the righteous get rewarded according to their righteous. That's why he's going to make manifest the counsels of your heart. What are you truly? All right, let's get this in the NLT. And it reads, so don't make judgments about anyone ahead of time before the Lord returns, for he will bring our darkest secrets to light and will reveal our private motives, that the Most High will give to each one whatever praises is due. Right? And for these devils, their praises is the judgment that the Lord is going to bring, their destruction, their fall. They will seek to overthrow conservative movements, exploit useful idiots to destroy their enemies, and cause general mayhem in order to sabotage and organize resistance. If you would like to support, okay, that's the end. And yeah, man, the Lord is bringing everything to light. Not, everything in a sense, but soon everything will be brought to light, right? In the kingdom, we'll know all that these devils have truly done. But now the world is starting to see on a mainstream stage that, the earth is indeed given to the hands of the wicked. The Bible doesn't seem like a fairy tale, anymore. And it never was. But again, speaking as a man, you have people who seem to think that, but it's slowly changing. That sentiment is slowly changing. So with that being said, once more, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Lord willing, this video was edifying, informative, or uplifting in some way, shape, or form. And shalom to the hopeful elect.